Okie dokie. Welcome to Do-It-Yourself Adventure Planning. I am Boomer Vori, and this is...
I'm Brock Browning. Did that come through?
Yep. I gotcha.
Yeah, sure. I am a student here at University of Idaho. I'm one of the outdoor program trip leaders as well. And I'm studying University of Idaho's recreation, sports, and tourism management major right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brock. And yeah, I'm Boomer Vori. I'm studying movement and leisure sciences with an emphasis in recreation, and I am the graduate assistant with the outdoor program. Okay. So today, kind of what we're going to touch on, kind of the topics and resources for the topics. We're going to touch on where to go, activities to do, permits you might need, weather considerations, equipment selection, leave no trace principles, and local adventures. And Kristen, if you have any questions at any point, you can either interrupt us or you can drop it in the chat and we'll answer you. So yeah, feel free.
Thanks.
Yeah. So first thing we'll jump into is popular activities around the Moscow area. In the summertime, there's a lot of backpacking, hiking, rafting, kayaking, climbing, fishing, biking, and hunting. And in the winter, there's a lot of awesome backcountry skiing out here, snowshoeing, ice fishing, cross-country skiing, and there are tons of mountains to do alpine skiing and boarding within a couple hours of here. So what we, in our both Brock and I's personal lives and both at the outdoor program, we preach the leave no trace principles. Now, we're not going to go super in depth into them in this presentation, but we do just want to give you the basics of them. And the 7 principles are plan ahead and prepare, which is why we are doing this program to help people plan ahead and prepare. Travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfire impact, respect wildlife, and be considerate of other visitors. And that's a very good principle for right now in this COVID time, to be considerate of other visitors, just wearing masks and being prepared. Listen, if you want to know, or anybody who watches this after the fact, more about the leave no trace principles, you can visit lnt.org, and it's a wonderful website, and they have a ton on there. And so now I will hand it over to Brock, and we will start the process.
All right. Thank you, Boomer. So just kind of going through, could you actually back it up a slide for me real quick? Yeah. No worries. Keep going.
Hold on.
Technical difficulties. All right. One moment here, or experiencing technical difficulties momentarily. Perfect. Oh. There we are. All righty. So I'm just going to kind of run through an example, just like a theoretical trip planning for how I would go about doing it in my own personal life, and also a really good kind of just baseline on planning your own trip and kind of figuring things out with friends and getting out into the backcountry and recreating in the places that are really amazing just in the Moscow area. So there's kind of a step-by-step process that I've put together here. Just to cover the basics of everything that you'll need. So to start with, we need to pick an activity. For our example, I'm going to be using backpacking just because it is that time of the year where people are going. I actually just got off of a backpacking trip for 4 days last weekend, and it was phenomenal. And we actually went through all of this for that beforehand. So now that we have our activity selected, we need to figure out where we'll be recreating. All Trails, for example, is a great website. It's also an app that provides all of the trail systems in the area, and the entire US actually, and has a lot of information on a lot of different trails wherever you are. So we'll be using that partly. We're also going to look at weather and potential permits that we're going to need to recreate on these lands. So we'll use the National Weather Service weather.gov website for our forecasting, and then we're going to use an Idaho Fish and Game website called Idaho Hunt Planner to see the ownership of the land we're recreating on and see whether or not we need permits for that. After that, and we have that information, we're going to go through equipment and kind of just go through the general outline of what clothing to pack on a backpacking trip, and we'll touch a little bit on that related to the weather as well. And then we'll also go through safety precautions such as emergency return times, first aid, and reasonable self-assessment. So basically being honest with yourself and not biting off more than you can chew and putting yourself in a bad situation because of it. I know I'm guilty of it before. Everyone does it every once in a while, but it's something good to reflect on so that you don't put yourself in that sort of situation. So at this point, I'm going to pull up a tab real quick and kind of walk you through how everything is going to go. So we are going to go here and then all trails. All right, so this is what the All Trails website front page looks like. You're going to need to have an account in order to access all the information, but it is free. You can sign in with Google and Facebook, stuff like that. It's very easy to use. There's also a pro version that gives even detail on all the trails, and you can even contribute new trails in this situation to build their network. But I am a poor college student, so I do not pay for pro, and you don't really have to either. It's not essential by any means. So start off with, we'll search Moscow, Idaho, right there. So this will put us in at least our area, so we have somewhere to start. Here are some of the kind of top trails in the area. So Headwaters is a trail on Moscow Mountain that's popular for mountain biking and hiking, but it's not really suitable for backpacking. So we're going to need to look a little farther to find that. So what we'll do here is click on the full map, which I did in that top right corner. That was just like an expansion map. And that will bring us to Moscow right here. And also show us, as we zoom out, more trails in the area. So as you can see, there are a ton of trails here. There's just 12 in the Moscow Pullman area. There's more over here. And as we scroll out farther, there are trails absolutely everywhere. So this can be a little overwhelming, but thankfully they have all these lovely filters up here that we can use to kind of narrow down our idea for what we want to do. So we're going to go to more filters, and we're going to select an activity. So there's a lot of activities that they have between running, cross-country skiing, bike touring, even off-road like four-wheeling, road biking, rock climbing. There's a little bit of everything. So we're going to select backpacking for our purposes and have a little look around. Now, as we get farther away from Moscow, that's just more driving that we have to do. So we're going to try and avoid that for this example. But let's check out over by St. Mary's. There's a trail over here that I had in mind for this example. So we're going to zoom in here and check out Big Creek Cabin Trail. So you can click on that and it'll pull up the trail information. So now we have an elevation profile with distance where a little blue tracker can follow you along the whole trail. So you can kind of see what you're getting yourself into going into this hike. There's also more information if you click show more. This is just kind of a light summary. Photos can be found here. So this is the trail that we would be using, just so you can get an idea of kind of the environment that you're going to be in. There's also this nifty little button that is directions. So as I clicked that, it just pulled up a tab in Google Maps, taking me straight to the trailhead. There's also written directions to the trailhead right here, which we will use in a moment to kind of narrow down our weather and who owns the area that we're recreating in. But yeah, there's a ton of information on this website. There's even a little weather index, UV, the daylight time frame, so sunrise and sunset. And then also people's recordings. You can upload your own as well if you have the app on your phone. But then here's some reviews. There's not a lot of reviews on this, but some will have extensive reviews up to into the hundreds I've seen before, just on specific trails with a bunch of different people's opinions on how well the trail's managed, how pretty it is, what it's good for, things like that. It also includes the different activities that can be done in this trail. So snowshoeing, walking, mountain biking, horseback riding even. So these are also other people that you're going to need to be aware of when you're out on the trail. But
do you see she just asked a question?
Oh, yes. Where is the chat? Let's see here. How do I open up the chat to see my question?
So the question is,
sorry, could you check that question for me? I can't quite find the chat.
6.5 miles is just one way in this example, right?
Correct, yes. So in this example, the route type is an out and back, and the length is just the distance one way. So you'll see as I go along this whole 6.5 miles in this elevation tracker, you'll see the little blue dot move out to the end of the trail and then back. So yes, that is just the length going out. But you can also just, hike out to here or something and shorten the trail as you need, especially with out and back stuff. It makes it a lot easier. Now, if this were a loop, 6.5 miles would be the length of the entire loop coming around because the start and end are in the same location. But this is not the case in this certain scenario. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
hopefully. Perfect. So now we're going to go to the National Weather Service to find our weather report. Now, that website is just weather.gov. It's run by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which runs all of our major weather forecasting within the US. So in order to find where we need to be looking, we'll just go back to All Trails and zoom out a little bit. And Herrick, Idaho, this little town right here is our closest point. So what we can do is in the top left corner here, there's a little search bar, and we can search Herrick, Idaho, and that should pop up right there. And that'll take us right to our weather forecast. So you can see here in the map, there's this little green dot right where Herrick is, which you can also compare here if you want to double check. What's also cool about this little map is you could click anywhere in any of these regions and it'll give you the forecast for that square wherever you select it. So let's take a look at our weekend forecast. Let's say we were doing this backpacking trip Friday afternoon through Sunday. So we take a look here. On Friday, there's a 40% chance of showers after 11 a.m. So when we'd be hiking, which means we're going to need to bring rain gear and things like that, which we'll touch on in a second. You have the rest of your temperatures here, so you can know how many layers to pack based on your own personal kind of need. But that is our just kind of detailed weather outlook for the next few days. So keeping that in mind, we're going to jump over to the last website I'm going to use, Idaho Hunt Planner. Now, this is kind of a weird website to find. So I'm going to go through the whole process from Google just because it can be a little weird to find it. I personally search Idaho Hunt Planner map in the Google search bar. This first link right here will take you to this web page. Now, in order to get to the map itself, you'll need to scroll down to Explore Maps and then click Hunt Planner Map Center. This will take you to the whole map of Idaho. Now, ignore these brown lines right now. These are the hunting units in Idaho. So if you're planning a hunting trip, these are very useful, but they don't really apply to us. So we're going to go to layers here as we zoom in and turn on a few layers just so we know where we are. Now, if you go administrative boundary layers here, there's wilderness areas. So this right here is the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness, things like that. Just places to keep in mind that might limit what you're allowed to bring into the backcountry. For example, mountain bikes are not allowed within wilderness areas. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. There's also a lot of other options here. You have more reference layers coming down here. So we're also going to be using state and federal land management sites for information. And we're also going to have, let me find it real quick. As we zoom in, let's see here, St. Mary's here. And if we look back on the map here, St. Mary's is just west of where we're going to be. So we can use it as a reference to find where we are. And now that we're closer, I'm going to select campgrounds just as one more reference to use for where we want to be. Now, if you look back on all trails, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but this is part of what you have to do when you're planning a trip. So I like to have all of my tabs open all at once just to kind of keep myself organized that way. Perfect. So if you check the beginning of the description, you'll see that the trailhead starts at Big Creek CCC Camp in Herrick, Idaho. So if we jump back to our map planner, we can zoom in. Herrick, Idaho is right here, and there's our CCC campground, meaning that that is going to be our trailhead right here. And going back to the legend of land surface management, the light green is owned by the US Forest Service right here, meaning that we don't actually need a permit to be recreating in this area. Now, this is different for every different location. For example, in the National Park Service, sometimes it is required to have a permit to go backpacking, let's say in the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier. There's a lottery raffle that gives out permits to a certain amount of people so that they can control how heavily used the area is. But this is not the case here, so we don't need any permits, which is good to know. And then also, I know the permit process can be super confusing a lot of the time, specifically with rivers and hunting and some of the more specialized backpacking and mountaineering areas around here. So if you ever have any questions about that, you can always call the local Forest Service office. They will probably have information for you, or you can come in and talk to the outdoor program. Any of us on staff here at the OP are happy to help as best we can, and will at minimum be able to point you in the right direction on where to find your information, even if we can't answer it right off the bat. But now that we have our three main things, including our trail, we've got directions, we've got weather, and we know that we don't need a permit. So now it's time to kind of start making our packing list and planning on what we're gonna do and where we're gonna go. So let's switch back to the PowerPoint here for a second, and we can dive a little deeper into that. So you want to go to clothing? Not yet. Perfect. So now that we have our activity, where we're going, weather and permits, we're going to need to talk about clothing and equipment, which we'll do momentarily. But before we move on to that, I want to talk about safety precautions just as a brief overview, specifically emergency return times. It's very important for me personally, but just in general, it's always good to have your plan written out for another person that isn't joining you, because oftentimes you'll be going into the backcountry where there isn't cell service. So an emergency return time is, let's say we're going backpacking for this weekend and we're expecting to be back in Moscow by 8 p.m. on Sunday. Now, if we have to go and find someone that's going to be within contact, that is going to be home and stable for the weekend, kind of as an emergency contact for not only us, but they have the time that we give them. So we'll be back in Moscow at 8. And if we don't get a hold of you by then, it's time to panic because there's something wrong. This is really important, specifically in winter travel and backcountry things, or backcountry skiing scenarios, because sometimes if a weather pattern we're going to move in and you have to hold up for a second, and you get out, have service and can contact the person and at least let them know that you're safe, but otherwise they know to send out a search party before it's too late, essentially. And that's just more of a precaution. Ideally, we never have to use that, but it is a good idea to have in place before you really go out into the backcountry and start recreating. So with that covered, we'll move on to clothing and equipment a little bit and just dive into the details of that. So with clothing, there's kind of 4 different layers to keep in mind when you're planning your trip. The first layer being like wicking and base layers. So your undergarments, as well as insulating long underwear, maybe wicking t-shirts or long sleeve shirts like a Nike Dry Fit or something along that lines. And then also wool and synthetic socks. We'll talk about why the material is important here in a moment, but having good socks, especially when backpacking, is super important because it keeps your feet happy, and your feet are what get you places. You don't want your Lamborghinis out of commission. Second layer is mid-weight layers. So this would be like a fleece jacket or like your hiking pants, just kind of your daily, what you're gonna wear actively throughout the day. You want these ideally to be moisture wicking as well to keep you dry and warm, much like your base layers, which fleece jackets do a great job of that, as do like the quick dry hiking pants or hiking shorts, or even zip off kind of conversion short pants that you can get. Your third layer is going to be an insulation layer, such as a puffy jacket, gloves, a beanie, like fleece pants or something, things that you're going to put on as the temperature dips in the evenings or even to sleep in. And then finally, you're going to have your protective layers, such as a rain jacket and rain pants. I personally bring these on pretty much every trip I do, regardless of the weather forecast, because we do live in Idaho and who knows what will happen. And the weatherman's not always right on top of that. So it's always good to be prepared to at least stay dry. Also, you're going to want a sturdy hiking boot or other suitable footwear for what you're doing. Don't try and, go hiking in Chacos if it's going to be a 1,000-mile backpacking trip. This is a bit of an exaggeration, but your feet aren't going to be happy about it regardless. Also a buff or neck gaiter, tying back to what Boomer mentioned earlier about being in COVID and having that as something that we need to be aware of now, even in the backcountry. So not only is it good for sun protection or dipping in the water to keep you cool when you're hiking or anything like that, it's also good to have just around your neck to pop up a mask when you're passing someone on a trail. Also, I personally like to bring sunglasses and a brimmed hat when I'm recreating as well. It keeps the rain off my face, the sun off my face, just protects me from the elements that little bit more to keep me happy and healthy while I'm moving around and not putting myself at any more risk than I need. So those are kind of your 4 major categories for layers. We'll dive a little bit more into the materials of things now, just so you know what you're buying, what you're wearing, and why it's good or bad. So each different material has its own setting. Like, don't get me wrong, none of these are perfect for every scenario, but a lot of them do have their own advantages and disadvantages. So I'm getting a little warm here. So with cotton, this is just like your average t-shirt that you'd be wearing to just around on your daily basis or something like that. They are light and breathable and oftentimes have the coolest graphics. So, look good, ski good, and that mentality. But in contrast, they do absorb water. And once they've absorbed water, they lose their insulation. And not to mention, they don't dry very quickly. If you ever are at the beach and your shirt gets wet, you're going to be wet for the rest of the day. That's kind of just how it is. Now, that's not a big deal when you're rafting down the Grand Canyon and it's 105 and you want to stay cool and you want to stay damp while also keeping your body covered from the sun. But if you're backcountry skiing and a big load of snow falls out of a tree branch and soaks your t-shirt, you're not going to be happy for the rest of the day. So just keep that in mind when you're selecting your layers and choosing your materials for your layers. And yeah, so at this point, we'll move on to wool and silk. Some benefits of wool and silk are they're breathable, moisture wicking, they dry really quickly in comparison to cotton, and they retain insulation to a certain degree when they're wet, which is just kind of a good safety check that at least you won't be freezing even if you're wet. And also just kind of a fun fact, they are flame retardant, they're self-extinguishing to a degree. So you won't burst into flames if you get too close to the fire, which is kind of cool. Some cons are they are often more expensive than a cotton alternative or even a synthetic alternative. And sometimes the lower quality items can be itchier, specifically with wool. But again, that's more of a mild inconvenience. Excuse me, let me take a breath here. It's hard talking with a mask. Synthetics is your kind of third option for materials. They're light, breathable, moisture wicking, and they dry very quickly. So this would be Nike Dry Fit or, you know, Lululemon leggings, things like that. The more kind of stretchy, breathable materials. These are really great as your base layers because they pull moisture away from your body, keeping you dry. But they can retain odors more than wool or silk or even cotton. So sometimes you can be a little bit more stinky by the end of your weekend if you're wearing all synthetics. Part of that is how much money you're putting into the material you're wearing with synthetics. The cheaper synthetics oftentimes retain odors worse than the more expensive ones. Also, synthetics can be staticky. That's more of a personal preference thing, but it can be annoying when your t-shirt is clinging to you the entire way up and down the trail. And then finally, typically more on the insulation side of things, this also applies with sleeping bags to a certain degree, but down is your final kind of big insulating layer. Pros of down are they're extremely light, they're very easy to pack, they're small, they retain heat very well, and you can select kind of what layer of insulation you want it to be based on how big the fill of the jacket is. So if you have a 200 fill jacket, it's going to retain less heat than an 800 fill jacket. So you can balance that kind of based on your personal preference. Some cons of it, though, are oftentimes they're very, more expensive. They also don't dry quickly once they're wet, which is a problem when you're trying to dry out as quickly as you can in order to keep warm. In tangent with this, they lose insulation when they're wet. There's two different types of down. There is natural down, which is actual feathers, and synthetic down. Synthetic down will typically retain more heat when it's wet, but feather down completely loses its insulation properties when it's wet. Both of these are very viable options. Natural feather down packs a little bit smaller and is a little bit lighter, but is also more expensive and again, completely loses insulation wet. So these are all things to consider when you are when you're selecting your clothing options for your weekend. So personally, on the trip that we have as an example, I would pack light t-shirts to wear during the day with maybe a fleece, my puffy, and then my rain shell for insulation layers, as well as a couple pairs of wool socks for hiking in, as well as a thick pair of wool socks to put on to keep my feet dry when I'm climbing into my sleeping bag at night. So again, just using these resources and this information can help you to make a more informed decision about the materials that you're wearing while traveling in the backcountry.
Brock, you want to hit mute?
Yes, I can do that.
Yeah, so going off clothing selection, Kristen, a lot of it does come down to personal preference and just knowing yourself and what your body can handle. Like for me, I choose pretty much exclusively not to wear synthetics because whatever, and it's almost all synthetics I've ever tried make me have rashes like along the side of my body. So I usually choose to wear cotton instead of synthetics. And that's just personal preference. So it's just knowing yourself and what you like and what your body reacts to. So, okay, next we are gonna go to something, if it works. I'm gonna go to first aid if I can get it. Hold on.
You all can't see me, but I'm nodding along to all of this. This is great.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, I gotta find this and then we'll go to first aid. What? Why did that happen? Okay. All righty, Brock.
All right. So now that we've got our clothing covered, as well as our other initial points, including location and weather, it's time to consider safety a little bit more before we get out into the field. So it's also always, in my opinion, very important to carry just a basic first aid kit with you at all times. So as you can see on the screen, there's a pretty good little list of things to bring when you're backpacking or traveling in the backcountry at all. Antiseptic wipes are pretty self-explanatory, as would be antibacterial ointment. I'm just going to kind of touch on some of the more specific items of this that have practical applications for backpacking, just to give an idea of why you're carrying these things. So blister treatment such as moleskin is super important because, like I had said before, your feet are your transportation. So making sure you take care of hot spots and blisters while on the trail is essential for being able to move around in the backcountry and be comfortable while you're doing it. Other than that, everything else is kind of just emergency medical things that are always good to have with you, including a SAM splint for if someone injures their arm or leg or a bone injury of some sort, butterfly bandages, and gauze and medical adhesive tape for more laceration-based injuries. And then also having just little things like tweezers to pull out splinters, allergy medications, antihistamines like Claritin or something if you're allergic to pollen and didn't know about it for that area. Just being prepared, over-prepared to a certain extent in your first aid. That way you can catch anything Mother Nature throws at you while you're out there and not really have to be concerned. You always have that backup.
Yeah, and oh, Brock, you want to mute real quick? Thanks. So I actually went out with a little goggle bag and went to Walmart and from this list created my own first aid kit. So you can do it that way. It's super easy to find all of these supplies in local stores around here, or you can order like an actual first aid kit. Either way, always good to have one in the backcountry. One more thing, Brock, if you would like to talk about self-assessment real quick before we move on.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. Self-assessment is a really important part of traveling in the backcountry because if you were to push yourself too far outside of your own means, not only are you putting yourself in danger, you're also potentially putting others in danger that have to come in and rescue you. So it's very good to be honest with yourself, know your physical abilities, your technical skill, and only focus on different trips and activities that are within that skill range. Of course, you're allowed to push yourself and better yourself, but not going without or not stepping outside your means is very important when traveling in the backcountry, just because of how unpredictable the environment you're traveling in can be. And you want to be prepared for all of the things that you may encounter. Now, if you want to improve your skills more, or you want to learn new things about traveling in the backcountry, the outdoor program offers a ton of classes on that. I took my wilderness first responder through the outdoor program, which is a medical certification that I have now. And that individually made me so much more comfortable traveling in the backcountry, just being more comfortable knowing that I can handle the potential for injury that is like the risk factor that I'm undergoing. They also offer things like swiftwater rescue classes, avalanche awareness and safety classes, even just basic backpacking skill classes and things like that are offered at the University of Idaho. So if you want to get into something that is outside your means, we are always a good resource for making it within your means to do that.
Okay, I don't know why my thing gets what?
Try clicking on the PowerPoint rather than in Zoom.
Wow, way to go. Good work, bro. Anyway, so we compiled a list of 11 essentials of backpacking that we feel are, really essential. Appropriate footwear, maps and navigation, water, and also preferably a way to filter water, some kind of water filter. I have a little tiny one that you fill up a bag about this big, put it in a stream, and then you screw on a little straw thing and then squeeze it and it filters it out. Very handy, very portable. Snacks are always the best. Rain gear and extra layers. Safety items, such as, flashlights, matches, stuff like that. First aid kit, knife, multi-tool, sun protection, such as sunscreen, chapstick, shelter, even like just on like a day hike, it's always good to bring some sort of like emergency blanket just in case something goes wrong and you have to maybe spend the night out in the backcountry. Always good to have something like that. And most importantly, it is always essential to have a good attitude. And another thing we didn't put on this list is toilet paper, because sometimes nature calls when you're in nature. So it's always a good thing to have. Okay, next, so we have compiled a list of resources that range from snow, climbing, weather, permits, mapping, water, mountain biking, and hiking. Are you, Kristen, just skimming this list real quick that you can see, are you familiar with any of these resources?
A few.
Okay.
We use Trail Forks a lot,
Nice.
and I've used All Trails, but a lot of them are new to me.
Okay, cool, wonderful. Okay, cool. So we will dive into some of these. I know that our time slot, we only have about 15, 20 minutes left. So let's go into WTA, if it'll load. Okay, so this is obviously specifically to Washington, but us bordering Washington makes it very useful.
Your screen share is lagging at the moment.
My screen share is? Oh. That's weird. Why is it lacking? Kristen, are you seeing the PowerPoint still, or are you seeing Washington Trails Association website?
I'm still seeing the PowerPoint.
Oh, interesting. Why did that happen? You are screen sharing. Stop share. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I like to, I'm from Washington, grew up in Western Washington, and so I used this a lot through my teenage years to find hikes. I usually use the app, but yeah, it's a really good resource to find hikes in the state of Washington. Let's see. Where are we at here? Come on. The internet's being super slow right now. Oh, I wanted this to work better. There we go. So as you can see, the whole state of Washington, and we'll pinpoint over in our area. Rose Creek Nature Preserve. So yeah, if you get, I gotta move this stuff. Come on. No, there we go. So yeah, it just similar to All Trails. It gives you hike details, how far it is, elevation gain, what people have rated it. So if you ever find yourself wanting to, venture over the county line or the border line and head over, there's some good options through WTA. Let's see. What else do we have? What are you looking at? Are you not on the?
I
Oh my
think
god.
I think since you're not sharing your whole screen, it's only whatever page is open.
Kristen, I apologize for the technical difficulties in
No
the
problem.
sharing. All right, Brock, would you like to go through one?
Yeah. So one of the, I guess, other apps that I'm most familiar with is more specific to climbing, and that is Mount Project. So if you look down under climbing, and one cool thing about Mountain Project is also there, it's kind of like an it's like Project Outdoors or something like that is this program. It's this app developer, and they're the same people that make Mountain Bike Project. They make Mountain Project, they make Hiker Project, they make Fishing Project. Like there's a list of like 6 of these different projects in these different apps that are all applicable to certain activities. So that's one of my preferred ones. Mountain Project, for example. I will steal the screen here real quick and dive into Mountain Bike or to Mountain Project. So here we are. Here's the main web. This is an app and a website, both. I'm more familiar with the app, but it is also very easy to use on the website. So for example, if we want to do a route finder, we can decide rock climbing, boulder, aid, ice, or mix. So we'll go rock, sure, 5.7 to 5. I'm not that good of a climber. There. And then all ratings, any pitches, find routes, and it'll just take you to a massive list from literally everywhere. So Southern Nevada, Yosemite, Okanagan, Lake Tahoe, Southern Utah or Southeast Utah, Grand Teton, Boulder, Colorado. There's a huge list, and you can use different, you can use routes, forums, etc. I'll search, let's see here. One of the local Granite Point in Idaho, I believe. Here's one. So here's a couple routes at Granite Point off of Lake Pend Oreille, which is up in Sandpoint area. So this one's actually northeast across from Lake Bayview on the southern tip of the lake. And yeah, here's a couple routes. It gives you information on that. And this is just another super useful resource that I like to use when I'm going to try and find new climbing places. So.
Okay, Kristen, is there any that are jumping out to you that you would like to see pulled up to find anything at the moment?
No, I think I'm gonna screenshot this and explore later. A
Perfect.
lot of these look really good.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, we are getting through it here. So, okay, one that I will push pretty heavily is Mamba. It's not just mountain biking. It is even though it's called the Moscow Area Mountain Bike Association. It has all the trails, hiking, and mountain bike trails on Moscow Mountain, which is such a great resource to have so close to our town. And dang it, it's not pulled up again. Let's see, share screen. Yeah, so does Mamba have an app too? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
but
think we usually get their trails through Trail Forks.
yep, exactly. And you can go on Trail Forks as well. Yep, perfect. Okay, we will continue on with the slideshow. Okay, so do you have your screenshot, Kristen? We good to?
Yep, I'm good.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's go through some local adventure ideas that are within 2 hours of Moscow. So Hayburn State Park, which is up north, about 59 miles from Moscow. You drive straight to Plummer, and then you take a right in Plummer, and about 5 miles down the road, you come to Hayburn. It's a really beautiful area. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went and camped up there. And I mean, it's on the very, oh, come on. It's on the southern tip of the lake, Lake Coeur d'Alene. And it's the St. Joe comes in there and you can see the Bitterroot Mountains. It's a wonderful place to be. And so for all Idaho state parks, you have to either have an IDPR park pass. If you're an Idaho resident, they're $10 per year at the DMV. It's super awesome. And then if you're not, which I'm still technically a Washington resident, it is $40 for the year for me, which is still worth it because there are many amazing parks in this state. And shameless plug, the parks in the McCall area, which I used to work at, are the best. So if you like mountain biking or camping, Ponderosa State Park and Lake Cascade State Park are great. Okay, Giant White Pine Campground, located 35 miles from Moscow. It's in the Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest, just off the White Pine Scenic Byway north of Potlatch. It's usually open from mid-May to mid-September. I do not believe that they extended their season this year, so I think it is closed for now. But in the late spring, early summer, pretty awesome place to camp. If you've never seen the giant 600-year-old white pine that's out there, it's definitely worth a trip, even if you're not camping. There is a camp fee associated with this area. Emerald Creek Garnet area, 54 miles from Moscow, located in the Idaho Panhandle National Forest. Something really cool about this place is that it is one of 2 places in the world where visitors can find star garnets. Now, there are private places where people can, where people find star garnets, but this is one of 2 places where the public can come and get them. And if you see the picture, those are what they look like when they're super nice and polished. And yeah, you can get a permit to get those at the area. This is a little known like activity to do in Idaho. So very cool. Elk Creek Falls, the tallest waterfall in Idaho, located 51 miles from Moscow. So you go out to Troy, and then as you're going out of Troy, you take a left and go past Spring Valley Reservoir and out past Deary. It does not take that long to get there. Yeah, 140 feet tall. Have you ever been out there, Kristen? I would highly suggest getting out there maybe in the spring.
I think once or twice. It's time to go back though.
Very cool. Wonderful. Hell's Gate State Park. This park is located just south of Lewiston on the banks of the Snake River. Super abundant recreational opportunities here. Hiking, biking, fishing, swimming, and rock climbing. We actually run a trip every fall semester, a rock climbing trip to this state park. There is a visitor center. There are mini campsites and cabins you can rent. But again, it's an Idaho state park, so there are fees associated with entering and being there. Moscow Mountain Trail System, which it sounds like you're pretty familiar with. Not very far outside of town, 6 to 8 miles. Many different access points. Most of the trails are on private land, so motorized use is prohibited. And we always like to make sure people know to really take care of the trails and land out on Moscow Mountain, because it is a privilege for all of us to be able to use it. And we're very thankful for the private landowners that allow us to continue to recreate on it. Also, I've skied Moscow Mountain a few times. Very fun backcountry skiing. And you can also do a little bit of snow biking and cross-country skiing up there in the winter. Spring Valley, I was just out there here on Saturday, and it was raining, and I was the only one on the reservoir, but it was still super fun. 18 miles from Moscow, just outside of Troy. Rainbow trout are stocked in the spring and fall. Healthy population of smallmouth bass, crappie, and sunfish. I will say that if you are wanting to go fish or swim or bring your dog out there, I would check. I can't remember who manages this land, but I would check the water quality, because when I was out there, it had a lot of blue-green algae. So just make sure to check the water quality before you go out there. There are a few campsites, and this time of year, they're all kind of all taken up by people out hunting. But yeah, I love going flat water kayaking out there. Steptoe Butte State Park, 37 miles from Moscow, located over the border into Washington. It's got a picnic area, an interp area, exhibit. What's a fact? A little fact that I learned was that the first European settlers that stumbled across this called it the pyramid, first pyramid of the West, because it looked like a pyramid from far away. So interesting fact. You will need a Washington State Discover Pass or a day use fee to get to Steptoe Butte. The Discover Pass is $30 for non-residents, and just a day use is $10. Really cool about the Discover Pass, though, is it's for a whole year, no matter when you buy it, 365 days, and you can put 2 vehicles on it. Kamiak Butte County Park. This one's also just outside the border, located outside of Moscow. I've been to this one a couple times. It's a very nice little hike, and on nice days you can even see the Kiwi Dome, which is pretty cool. There's a fee required to camp here, but yeah, this one is a sneaky good one. And if you're just looking for a quick day hike, just want to get out, I would definitely recommend Kamiak Butte. Palouse Trails. One of my favorite things here on the Palouse is the extensive trail system that runs all across this area. The Bill Chipman Palouse Trail is a paved path connecting Pullman and Moscow. Paradise Path runs through the UI campus and connects the Chipman Trail to the Latah Trail. And the Latah Trail runs from Moscow to Troy. It takes about, if you're biking from Moscow to Troy, it takes about 2 hours, depending on how fast you're biking. It's a fun little bike, I will say that. The Corkle Trail is a gravel path between Kendrick and Julietta, so it's a little bit of a drive, but all sections are great for biking, running, or walking. And there are multiple access points, so many access points in Pullman, Moscow, Troy, Kendrick, and Julietta. Palouse Falls. I went to Palouse Falls for the first time 2 weeks ago, last week, 2 weeks ago. It is absolutely amazing. Just the geology of it, and how everything is flat, and then you just come up to it and it's just the biggest waterfall you've ever seen. It's very beautiful. This is a Washington State Park, so a day use fee or the Discover Pass is required. There's also camping here, and really it's 92 miles from Moscow, but it's really not that far of a drive. It doesn't feel very long to get there, but would highly recommend. Palouse Divide ski area, if you are interested in Nordic skiing, 39 miles from Moscow. Located on Highway 6 north of Potlatch, this area contains 20 miles of marked trails, with many of them groomed by snowmobiles. There is a winter park and ski permit required. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head how much that is, but I'm pretty sure it is very worth it. And it is kind of the only like groomed Nordic skiing area around the Palouse. There is Nordic skiing on Moscow Mountain, but it's not groomed. So with that, I believe we are at a couple more resources before we end here. So we are a great resource for things like this. And I will kind of show you on our website. Stop share and then share again. It'll pop up. Sweet. So if you're ever looking for resources specifically on our website, all you got to do is on Google, type in University of Idaho Outdoor Program, and the first link will get you here. And then scroll down, you can read about everything we have. And then on the right, we have a trip planning resources tab. Learn more. And then resource links. We have a ton of links on here as well. So we have the Where Vandals Roam blog. We have a couple to check weather, river conditions, winter resorts and avalanche information, partnering organizations to us, and regional outdoor activities. So lots of activities if you're ever looking for something to do and you're looking for something, just hop on the website and there you go. And then what else do we have here? One more. Let's see, is it? Where?
We'll just click the next link and keep going.
Yeah. Come on. Dang. Technical things here. Okay. I have to do it the hard way. Sorry. There we go. Oh, why is that not working? Bear with me, everyone. Slideshow, Palouse Region Heights. Okay. Such a process. And so if it's loaded yet, there we go. So we also have, this is a little harder to find. And if you are interested in this, Kristen, please let us know and I can send this to you. Palouse Region Hikes and Trail Notes from the Outdoor Program. It's just a little booklet that was published a few years ago that has a bunch of local hikes and equipment recommendations. Moscow Mountain, Kamiak Butte, Idler's Rest, Palouse Divide, Old North-South Ski Bowl, Giant White Pine, Laird Park, Spring Valley, Moose Creek, Elk Creek Falls, Boulder Creek Campground, Freeze Out Ridge, Robinson Park, and it goes through how to get there and things you can do while you're there. Virgil Phillips Farm, McCroskey State Park, Palouse Falls, Steptoe Butte. So this is just another really good resource that is available online. Yeah. So with that, let's get back to the PowerPoint, if it will not, of course, classic. Okay, so with that, that is the end of our presentation. Do you have any questions or anything we can answer for you, or anything we could send you, any resources? Let us know.
I will. I have one quick question, or at least I hope it's quick. Do you have any sites you recommend for reviews of outdoor gear? I feel like we're looking at buying snowshoes and it's kind of overwhelming to know what is right for you. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, actually, there's two different ways like that I would recommend going about finding the right snowshoe for you. One of them is stopping by the OP. A lot of the people that work here have a lot of information on just how to fit snowshoes, or even just like good brands to look into. A lot of us have a pretty good knowledge of kind of the range of gear that's involved. But another option, I don't know if they have one that's snowshoe specific off the top of my head, but REI actually has a really great website that shows you just all of the different, like how to buy skis that fit you or snowshoes that fit you. So
Okay.
let me pull up, I'll show you that website just so you kind of know what it looks like here super fast. This one, share, cool. So it's actually going to be in the expert advice side of thing. So snow sports, let's actually see if they have one real quick. So there's all these really great articles in here. So, tips for dressing your kids in the winter, how to choose a snowboard, how to choose and use gaiters, which is actually pretty useful for when you're snowshoeing. So you might want to check that one out. Let's see here, hydration packs, downhill skis, snowboards, how to choose snowshoes. How about that? So yeah, this is a really great resource for pretty much any and all backcountry outdoor equipment that you could possibly need. Understanding different materials, like they really dive deep into this and have a ton of super useful information. So that's kind of one resource that I use to find gear. Another one that I use is just Google, really just Googling places.
Do you want to drop that link?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I can actually I'll actually drop that how to choose snowshoes link into the chat, so you can just copy it and paste it into your browser if you'd like. Just save you there you go. So that should send you straight to that article, so you could check that out. But
great.
Yeah, the internet is always a wonderful place. Sometimes it takes some filtering through opinions, but usually REI is one of the reliable sources that I use for information like that.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Anything else, Chris? Anything else you got for us?
No, this was awesome. I really appreciate all the information and looking forward to digging into it when we plan our next trip.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you ever have any questions, drop by the outdoor program. We're open 9 to 6 Monday through Friday. So feel free to come in and pick our brains about stuff.
I will. Thank you so much. This was great. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Nice, dude.
I want to stop the recording, but
yeah, well. All right. Thanks, everyone.